Hello, everybody. Welcome to the December episode of the monthly threat brief, the SIG download. Going to give everyone just a minute or two to get settled, and then we will get started. Thank you so much for joining. Okay, everyone. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to this month's episode of the SIG download, the monthly threat brief, the SIG download. My name is Trisha Howard, aka Trisha Kicks Sass, and I'm so excited to do this episode today. For those of you who have joined us before, you may notice that something is different. Welcome back. Thank you for coming back. For those of you who this might be your first time, for the next time that you come back, you will see that things are a little bit different. We did do things kind of special for the holiday episode, as I think is customary. Normally, I would have a co host with me, one of the amazing researchers here at Akamai, and we would kind of go through what has happened the previous 30 days in security, or the previous month, I should say, in security. We will do that a little bit today. I'm going to give you a little, because it has been a flurry of activity in cyber already in December, um, and give you just kind of a little update about what's been going on here at Akamai and a little bit as to what is going on in the industry. And then after that, we're going to go into some holiday specific security discussion. So thank you so much for joining. The first thing I wanted to hit on is some updates. Last time we mentioned that the infected slurs botnet was out. There were a few 0 days that were helping spread Mirai. We talked about this on our last episode under the infected slurs campaign. We have issued a release to one of the affected vendors, so you can check that out on our blog to make sure that if you have one of the affected devices, that you can take the proper mitigations. That you can find that on akamai.com/blog/security-research. That will have for infected slurs. That we have one that's already out and one that's coming out very soon. So be sure to keep an eye on that, or on x.com at Akamai_research. You can find that as well. It's the easiest way to keep up with us in real time. The other update, of course, Patch Tuesday. We do a write-up every month of Patch Tuesday that is coming. So if you haven't patched already, probably get on that. Also check out for our write-up, which is coming tomorrow. And the last thing that I want to hit on before we get into the meat of the show is the Apache Struts vulnerability. We have actually been seeing quite a bit of activity around this, trying to exploit this. It's a web shell that is working with it's a web shell, and it has deviated from the initial proof of concept. So be sure to check that out. We have a tweet advisory, and there will be a more full advisory coming. So be on the lookout for that. Okay, now that we've gone through the updates, let's get into the holiday content. And I mentioned before that there were some things that are different. And one of the things that I've done differently for this episode is that I have actually written, well, parodized, I should say, a little holiday jingle that you hopefully will recognize, that has been written to be about security. And it's all in good fun, and it's intended to be shared with people who may or may not be technical. So while we are all hanging out with hopefully, our friends and family and loved ones who may or may not know that they are certainly part of the cybersecurity community during the holidays, that they can just take one little second. So if you will, thank you very much for obliging me here. Let's get into zone. Surfing through the web for just the perfect price. You're scouring websites when an ad falls on your eyes. The deal just seems too great, but it likely isn't fate. The holidays are filled with scams. Don't fall for that clickbait. Distractions, phishing scams, bogus charities, and ads. Take a sec before you click so you don't end up had. All right. Thank you for that little jingle bells. Now we can now we can keep going. Um, it's funny when I started pulling together content for this episode. One of the first questions that came to my mind was, the threats that are in the holiday time are not necessarily special to holidays. We deal with these threats all the time. We deal with phishing, we deal with DDoS, we deal with malvertising all the time. So why do we as cybersecurity professionals and really the world at large focus a lot on cyber around the holidays? And there are some pretty obvious answers to this. I think if you worked in security any time, but I think it's important to make sure that we're hitting on this. I think the number one reason while yes, these frauds are happening all the time, this is a really, really short amount of time for that amount to happen. And it makes sense. The average American spends between $500, so it's around $500 between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And that can be blown up to anywhere in the world, wherever your holidays, whatever your holidays are. The trend we are seeing this because there's a lot of activity that's happening around the holidays, a lot of cyber activity in particular. Uh, this is really sad because, of course, around the holidays, people themselves are getting hit more than they typically would. It's not just businesses who are getting hit. In fact, the users themselves are the ones that really, really get wrecked around the holidays from a cyber perspective. So it's important that we're keeping an eye on this. Just all of last year, we saw 1,265% increase in phishing attacks. That is likely because of AI. So this is something we need to be aware of going into, well, we're in the middle of it, but going into the new year as well. This is likely going to be a problem that only gets worse. And they can write really well. I'm sure you've seen some of these, AI written scams. They sound a lot better than the ones that we're used to. So be aware, its volume is huge, especially when we're talking about phishing and lots of money, which we will get into lately. One piece of research that we actually did observe ourselves was mage card activity is also up. We did an analysis running from Black Friday to Cyber Monday, and we found that there was an increase of 90% of mage cart infected websites on the holiday of Cyber Monday, more than our daily average. So 90% more infected websites than we would typically see because of the holiday. So whenever we talk about special cyber things around the holidays, this is why, even though they're the same threats, it's just a totally different ball game. So why? The answer is pretty simple. We're likely to be successful around this time. And why is that? What is one of the number one threats that we as cybersecurity professionals face on a daily basis? People, human error. So it's going to be worse if we're distracted. And I don't know much more of a more distracting time than the holidays. In fact, I dealt with one this morning. One of the things, Wi-Fi going out, right? Things just go wrong. If they're going to go wrong, they're going to go wrong whenever everyone is stressed out. And the holidays are no exception. So while hopefully the holidays are a loving and kind, wonderful time to be spending with your family and friends and other loved ones, that's not always the case. And so I would caution you, please try and be kind during the holidays. And I'm not only saying this just because of the mental health PSA, I'm also saying this because the attackers are waiting for us to be distracted. Family. We're traveling. There's kids running around. You're in a new environment. Even if you typically work remotely, maybe you're working remotely from a different place. You got to deal with internet issues. You have to deal with all these things. People are distracted. So maybe you would typically check that URL. Maybe you would typically take that extra mile, but this time you've got you're trying to board a plane, your kids are running around, and you just have an email from your boss that says, you better get to this right now. Of course, there's going to be an emotional response. So when we're talking about emails, this is for corporate and when we're talking for corporate and personal, take a breath before you click. That's all we're asking, especially around the holidays. Just take a breath before you click. Notice the emotional response. If you still have the same emotional response, try and contact that person in a different way other than the email, and it will likely go a long way. If it's legitimate, you'll find out pretty quick. And if it's not legitimate, you might have just saved yourself for a second. So just make sure you take a breath. And also, distractions aren't necessarily bad things. They could be because we're having fun, and hopefully that's true, albeit not too much fun. I did find a really cute little stat I wanted to share with you. So Cyber Reason in 2021 ran a survey and found that 70% of respondents actually admitted to consuming alcohol while trying to protect the corporate environments from cyber threats. So distractions can be good and they can be bad, but please just keep an extra mind on the holidays. Another reason that things work is, as I mentioned before, money. The holidays are a big, big money making time, whether it is for Diwali with betting and casinos, whether it is here, Cyber Monday, and their money is just thrown around the holidays, and people know that, especially attackers. Cyber Monday this year, sales totaled $12.4 billion. Okay. And that is dollars. If a threat actor can take even a smidgen of that, they can make a lot of money. So there's a lot of money to be made and a lot of money to be lost around the holidays. Please keep in mind, especially we're going to kick into the next one, which of course is phishing. We're going to spend just a second on phishing. That if it involves money, again, please take a breath before you click. The types of phishing also does change just a little bit. It gets a lot more specific. And of course, specificity will bring a lot of trust if you are someone who is looking for that very special prize that was mentioned in the song. Fake charities. People like to take advantage of the holiday sentiment. Hopefully, we're in a more giving problem. I'm going to want to fix it very quickly. And if this ad allows for that, I'm going to be much more inclined to click on it. Just take a second, make sure you're doing your due diligence. Again, it's all just taking a second. Hotel accommodations. This one, actually, I have a cute little story about. We wrote about this. There was a scam where an info stealer was being downloaded onto hotel sites, and then the threat actor was acting as an agent of the hotel, communicating with people, with guests themselves directly through the third-party booking platform. I actually myself got one of these attempts for our trip coming up, and I responded back with our article that we wrote about it. So be aware if you do see a scam, if you do see someone saying, hey, if you don't check your, if you don't confirm your reservation within 24 hours, you will be let go. Your reservation will be let go. It is a scam. You can read on our blog all about it, all about that campaign. And of course, smishing is very, very high right now, especially when we're talking about delivery notices, all of these other things. Just make sure that your sources, you're checking your sources and that they are legit. The biggest problem, though, when we're talking about phishing is that the threat actors have learned that if they make their fake deals sound like real life, we're a lot more willing to click on it. And they have done that. They have started mimicking legitimate marketing things that we would do. One of them we wrote about actually last year. Was a phishing scam that was abusing the holiday sentiment, saying that they were giving away a Yeti cooler and all you had to do was pay shipping and handling. This is something legit that we would expect, right? But it was illegitimate. And we found out later that this was actually part of a phishing infrastructure that was being, millions of people were being routed through this. So this is something I want to point out to our defenders. We do need to start looking at phishing a little bit differently, particularly around the holidays. It's not a site-by-site basis. These are very resilient infrastructures that can it's impressive how far the links will go. But again, it makes sense. These make a lot of money, and even if they're only up around the holidays, a threat actor can likely make a pretty decent living around this time if they are focused enough and have the technology to do so, which they absolutely do. So just be aware that this is coming. They want to play on the goodness of people. They want to play on emotions. And this is something, social engineering is so big around the holidays. So just be kind, be vigilant, be happy. This one has been a little bit longer than we normally would, but thank you so much for joining. I am going to, we have just a couple of announcements here. The next episode, I will be joined by Maxim Zavodchik. It's going to be an amazing episode. We're going to talk new year, new hacks, or maybe they're the same ones. We'll find out, talking on the 18th of January, 9 a.m. Eastern. Of course, check out the on-demand of this webinar. Remember that song will be right at the beginning. I put it at the beginning, so it's easy to find. And check out our security intelligence group page on akamai.com. or on x.com at akamai_research. That's the best way to keep up with SIG and what's going on in real time. Bookmark this page so that you never miss an episode. We do this every month, and it's such a great time. If you have a question, suggestion, or you have feedback, please give it to us. We want to make sure that this content is useful and fun for all of you. So reach out to us at brighttalk@akamai.com, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you, everyone, for joining again. Happy holidays wherever you are, and I hope you have smiled today. See you next time.